Hi, Phil Aston here from Now Spinning Magazine with another episode of The Review Show. So pull up a chair, pour yourself a nice cup of tea and relax back and look at 9 new releases that have made their way to the Now Spinning Magazine towers. And this is all music that I've been really enjoying listening to over the last couple of weeks or so. There's lots of different styles and tastes, so I'll give you a quick overview for those of you who just want to see whether you want to stay for the whole duration or whether you should pop in and back or just fast forward to the bits that you like the sound of. But hopefully there'll be something here for lots of you, depending on whatever kind of style of music you're into. So on CD, in the CD box set department, is Renaissance and Running Hard, albums from 1974 to 1976. That's on Esoteric Records. Also from Esoteric, Atomic Rooster, their long lost album from 1980. This is a 2 CD set. Jake Stevenson, I showed you this as a double vinyl album last month. This is the 3 CD version. I'm going to show you this because it's well worth getting, because it's literally 3 hours of music. Tim Boniface is a new jazz artist, very new to me, but a wonderful, beautiful album. War, Why Can't We Be Friends, the 50th anniversary edition set, still sort of on CD and vinyl. Well, it is on CD and vinyl. Is Dr. Feelgood and Down by the Jetty. This is the mono remaster that's just been released. Heavy metal, very heavy metal, is Warfare and the Lemmy Sessions. And we've got Nad Sylvan, current vocalist with Steve Hackett with his new solo album. And Sons of Mew, Are You Tired of Being Human? Indeed, which is a new album and a new artist to me as well. And then I'm just going to round off with a couple of books. One is called Heartline. It's the authorised biography about Robin George. I interviewed Robin George a couple of years ago, and as you know, Robin sadly passed away not that long ago, and that interview has been used as a kind of part of this book, but it's a wonderful book to read. I'm going to touch on that. And another book I'll end on is Sing Me Away. This is the new book from Tim Durling about the band Night Ranger, and I'm very honoured to have been asked to write the foreword for this book. So, where shall we start? Let's start at the loud end, first of all, with Warfare, the Lemmy Sessions. How many of you are aware of this band? This is from 1985. Warfare were kind of a band that were almost trying to outdo Motorhead at being Motorhead, and obviously the Lemmy connection is because this is the kind of thing that would have drawn Lemmy in. Now, Evo is the drummer and the vocalist. He was also in the Angelic Upstarts, which gives you a feel for where this music is coming from. This is really, really aggressive, thunderous heavy metal. What was I doing in 1985? I was listening to Rat, Bon Jovi, Dokken, which I saw as being fairly heavy metal music. But of course, compared with this, it was like a folk duo. I'll just read out a couple of aspects of it so you know where it's come from. Because the other thing I'd like to point out is that there is a Now Spinning Magazine connection to this release in more ways than one. There are 2, it's a double album, so you get an EP as well. I'll show you the actual album itself is on a gold mottled effect coloured vinyl, which is gorgeous. In fact, I think the last time I saw that was on a Alan Parsons album. So there's a picture of Evo on the front and the tracks on the other side. And then there is a 12-inch single. Now, this is produced by Evo and Wayne McAloon. Wayne McAloon is a patron of Now Spinning Magazine. He's also a professional sound engineer and producer who knows Evo really, really well. Also on here is Kronos from Venom on bass guitar, and Fast Eddie Clark was also on one of the tracks as well. Again, another guy who's sadly missed. It's weird, isn't it, to think that everyone from Motorhead is no longer with us. So this is a 40th anniversary edition. Now, Evo says in the press release for this, which I've got, it says, "I found these recordings in my loft on cassette, which has never been played in over 40 years. It always makes me a bit nervous, that. They are songs which were put down through the desk and given to me for approval by Lemmy before he twiddled all the knobs and created the polished album that came out in 1985. And Evo says, "It was great working with the Motorhead frontmen, and a week of total lunacy. We were on fire." And Evo says to pour a glass of your finest beverage. So I might be asking you to drink a cup of tea for this show, but if Evo will probably want you to pour something a little bit stronger, I imagine. So this is the first time that these recordings have been released on vinyl. It's the first time, and they've been cut from recently discovered rough mix. So basically, this is a rough mix that Lemmy did of the album, which was then sent over to Evo, and then it was kind of polished up. Now, it's interesting because this is one of the most brutal heavy metal albums of its time. But talking to Wayne, Evo is one of his best mates, and he said he wanted to put this out because he felt the original album was perhaps a little bit too polite. That's an interesting observation. I don't think the first album was very polite at all, but this really is. This is one of those albums that even if you have it on your hi-fi and you've turned the volume down to 3, I'm not quite sure why you do that, but if you did, it would still sound loud. It would still sound heavy. It has that kind of resonance to it. It's really full on. I have to say, there is a bit of light and shade on side 2. There are different dynamics and different aspects of this. I mean, there really are some really great songs. I mean, side 2 is probably my favourite, but I really like the EP as well. But if you're a fan of Warfare, then this is essential stuff, or that kind of mid-80s period of metal, then you'll really, really like this. And of course, you know, if you're into bands like Venom and obviously the Motorhead connection, then give it a listen. I don't know if it's on CD, but it's on double vinyl and it's out now. What label is this on? It's on Cherry Red, but it's on Cadiz. The vinyl is on Cadiz Records. Right. So that's the first one. Where should we go now? Should we go do a box set? Yeah, let's do a box set. So now, in a totally change of genre, because it's nice to jump around on things, and that's what's good about as we go through life as music fans and collectors, how we kind of widen our scope. And this is important for this next band, especially for me personally. Renaissance. This is the albums Running Hard 1974 to 1976. So let's have a look, shall we, inside the box. I'll show you how well this has been put together. This is a look at a new Renaissance box set, the albums from 1974 to 1976. It's called Running Hard and has 4 CDs in it. And a booklet, which I'll show you in a moment. And the albums are, in the order, is Turn of the Cards. So they're simple affairs, but they've got all the track listings on the back. And then we've got Scheherazade, which is from 1975, one of my favourite albums by the band. And then we've got 2 discs, which are basically the double live album from 1976. These have been released before in deluxe editions where they've been expanded to about, 2 or 3 CDs. So this is a way for Esoteric to put them together to make it so people can buy the albums together if you don't necessarily want the deluxe editions. So it's a great booklet. I imagine, I haven't got those other ones, but I imagine this booklet has been compiled from some of those other booklets. But you've got, the full details of all the tracks. And then you've got the story behind each album. So Turn of the Cards. And the band have been interviewed for this as well. So it's very interesting and it really brings you up to speed if you're new to this band. And we've got Scheherazade and Other Stories. One of my favourites, of course, Blackmore's Night. Did Ocean Gypsy from that. And then we move into the live album here as well, but there's lots of pictures, and it's a nice booklet. It could have easily just been a few pages, but it's really well put together with lots of text, lots of input from Annie, some live pictures from the album there, and a picture of Annie at the very back. So how many pages would you say that is, Phil? 33, 4, 5, about nearly 36 page booklet. So that's a look at Running Hard, the albums from 1974 to 1976 on Esoteric Records for Renaissance, and I'll tell you what I think. So that's a look inside this great little box set from Renaissance called Running Hard, the albums 1974 to 1976. You'll have noticed as I did the unboxing that my adventurous way of describing the second album in this set may not have been exactly correct, and it might not be now, so I'll do my best. And you can put in the comments if I get it right or wrong. There are 3 albums, as you saw in this. There is Turn of the Cards, which is one of my favourites. But the one that really has, is the one that I play the most, is actually Scheherazade. And that really is probably my favourite album of the catalogue at the moment. And the other one, which I do have on vinyl, strangely enough, in a way, and I'll explain why, is Live at the Carnegie Hall, which is split on, as you saw, onto 2 CDs. Renaissance, Annie Haslam, who me and Sue are hoping to interview very, very soon. Wonderful vocalist, wonderful band. Now, when these albums are coming out, this is kind of their mid-period. This is kind of music that I didn't know existed at the time. 74 to 76, where was I? I was listening to Rainbow, Sabbath, Zeppelin, Montrose, Status Quo, Thin Lizzy. That was my trajectory. I was exploring bands like Yes and Genesis, but bands that were very classically orientated because of their, the way they'd learned to play and the way they were putting their music together, just did not come onto my radar screen at all. Not just because of me personally, but think about it, for those of you of a certain age, when you went back and bought records or introduced to music, it was usually one of your mates that said, have you heard the latest, whatever it was? And you'd say no, or yeah, can you do a tape for me? Or can you lend that to me? I didn't know anybody in my peer group who said, oh, have you heard the new Renaissance album? It's epic. So I didn't, and there was only so much money from our pocket money or our early jobs, so we didn't know about it. Now, thanks to Esoteric Records and Cherry Red and the fact of the internet, a bit like Gentle Giant, more people now are going back and discovering music that they missed the first, second, or perhaps even third time around. And it's a wonderful, literally renaissance for musicians from this era who are having their music reappreciated and probably more respected now than it ever was back then. Although these albums were incredibly successful in the USA, but over here, a bit like Gentle Giant, they were kind of hidden in the background, seen as like you've got Zeppelin and Yes, and then next division down you have the bands like Camel, whatever, and then further down was bands like Renaissance. But I do remember Northern Lights, Top of the Pops, late 70s. That's a great album, by the way. Height of Punk, and this band that was just, with this voice so different to anything else that was on Top of the Pops at the time. But now the spotlights are on Renaissance, and this is a wonderful little box set, and Esoteric are going to bring out another companion set in this series. Esoteric, to be fair, have released deluxe editions of these albums, sometimes 2, 3 CD versions. But if you've already got those, you don't need this. But if you're getting into the band and you want an easy way of collecting, some of their finest music together in one go, then these are highly recommended. And I know when I posted just a simple photograph as a post on the YouTube channel, the amount of people that said, oh, now you're talking. I think it's wonderful to see so many people rediscovering bands like this. So that's lovely stuff from Renaissance. Highly recommended. I think we'll stay with Cherry Red and Esoteric for the next one. And this is Atomic Rooster. Now, Atomic Rooster Carl Palmer was the original drummer, and for the first album was spelt Atomic Rooster, and Rooster had 3 O's in it. This is the album from 1980 that has 2 O's in it, which is also called Atomic Rooster. 1980, now we've got Iron Maiden, Samson, Def Leppard, the new wave of British heavy metal, and quite a few bands from this period suddenly thought, maybe we could reform, maybe we could surf our way to another bout of success. There's quite a few bands around this time that had a go at doing this from that period. Thinking of bands like Stray. There's probably others that will come to mind while I'm talking now, but Atomic Rooster, one of them. And all these bands that did this kind of Groundhog's another one, is a kind of to try and tweak their sound to be more kind of contemporary. Now, I was expecting this to be more metal, I guess, than it was, but realizing that the band had been raised and created on the back of some lush and doom-laden Hammond organ. Let's have a quick look inside the set, actually, because it's been really well put together. Of course, the first album by Atomic Rooster was also called Atomic Rooster, but it had 3 O's in it, so this is different in that respect. This is a more metal energized version of the band, released in 1980. There's some bonus tracks, lots of demos, and on CD 2 there's Live at the Marquee Club, which I think, based on what it says in the booklet, was recorded on a simple 1 microphone cassette player. So at the time when we're doing this little unboxing section, I haven't heard it, so I'll let you know in a few moments what I think about that. But this is Vincent Crane on Hammond organ, John Ducan on Fender guitars, and Preston Heyman on drums. There's some pictures there as well of the band live, and a nice essay that really gives you some background of what was going on with the band. Some Steve Pilkington in February 2025, and another nice picture of the back. So now I'll tell you what my thoughts are. So that's a look inside it, so that's useful for you to see what you get for your money. It's a 2 CD set, and it's a great story. The music itself, was a bit of a surprise to me. I was expecting it to be more kind of rock orientated. Of course it's rock orientated, but it's more punk new wave, especially for the first half of the album, that I was expecting, especially because of the way the vocals are delivered. And that was a surprise to me. I'd never heard this at the time. As I say, I love Atomic Rooster and all the different styles that they had. But when they came out in 1980, I was so focused on the new bands that I just saw Atomic Rooster, they're a band that are just trying to come back. I didn't even listen to this at that time. And I see Steve Pilkington in his essay really gives a good job of giving an overview of this. But it wasn't really until track 7, Don't Lose Your Mind, which really is the kind of sister or brother to one of their most famous songs, either Tomorrow Night or The Devil's Answer. It's got that kind of really funky type of riff. It's a great song, but obviously they must have thought, maybe if we need to just dial up the Atomic Rooster style here. And after that, Watch Out, I Can't Stand It, and Lost in Space are Hammond organ kind of more orientated than the first half of the album. There's some great demo tracks on it. There's also a B-side, and the CD that you'll probably want to know most about is the live one from the Marquee. Now, this states in the text that it's recorded on a microphone sitting on top of the stage on a cassette. So it says it's been included because of the atmosphere that it captures and the energy of the performance. As you know, anything that sounds remotely like a bootleg has me running for the hills, and it's usually something I play, sometimes not even all the way through, and just kind of like file it away. So that's the way I approach that. But I didn't find that at all. I mean, you can. And I've heard quite a few of them sometimes recorded on a single microphone in mono, and it does capture a performance really, really well. And this is one of those. It's really, really exciting. In fact, it's interesting how the new songs translate to the sound of Atomic Rooster more on the live setting than they do on the studio album. But this does include Tomorrow Night and Death Walks Behind You and Devil's Answer, which are my favourite tracks anyway, but they really are well performed. So that is, again, if you're into Atomic Rooster, early 70s rock, but from the 1980 period, then give that a listen as well. Shall we do another vinyl album now? Yes, I think we will. And we're going to do Nad Sylvan's new album, which is called Monumentia. Now, this is, I'll just put that there, and I'll read out a bit of the press blurb that I've got, because I think this will help give you some context, I feel. Nad is known as the vocalist and with legendary guitarist Steve Hackett, and anything that Steve does live, Nad's singing fantastic on those tracks. Perfect voice, especially for the Genesis stuff, as you can imagine. This album is described as a vulnerable and personal view, as Sylvan's music draws heavily from the golden age of progressive rock, blending in folk, classical, modern rock influences. It is classic and contemporary, as it says here. And Nad says here that the album is much more vulnerable. I'd say 75% of the lyrics are directly about my life. It's me laying everything out there, wearing my heart on my sleeve. And this, he puts this on, I'm going to read that out actually. I'll just say who else is on this. Guitarist Randy McStein, David Collar, Neil Whitford. Drummers and the records are Marco Miniman, Mirko De Meo, Felix Duran, and on bass we've got Jonas Reingold, Nick Beggs and Tony Levin. But this is what kind of really drew me into this album. It's gatefold sleeve. It's on Inside Out Records, who always do poly-lined inner sleeves on their albums. It's on glorious green vinyl, and it's an absolutely meticulous pressing. And Nad says here, a journey through heritage and memory. I'm orphaned now. At the age of 96, my father, Hugh W. Stewart, passed away peacefully in his sleep in California on July 19th, 2024. My mother, Nad Sylvan, died aged 68 at home in Sweden on her bedside commode ravaged by cancer. 15 years apart, you step into a new dimension of life and things will never be the same again. It's monumental, and it is when you go through that, as I know many of you have, and I have, when you find yourself describing yourself as an orphan. Both my parents were exceptionally gifted and charming, albeit quite egotistical. They didn't seem to bother too much about me or my siblings, mostly putting themselves first. Yet in many ways, I was the spitting image of both of them, especially my mother. Our minds worked in a similar way, and as a result of that, we were often on a collision course, as she couldn't fully accept me for who I was, let alone my sexuality, and she hated my long hair. I already have 2 daughters. Why do I need a third? This created a rift. And as much as I loved her, and I really did, and I miss her terribly, I felt kind of liberated when she was gone. When my father, it was different. He didn't care, and I never saw him much, as he kept himself busy with 5 more marriages over in the USA after a divorce from my mother. My parents met in Sweden in 1957 when my father was playing a tennis tournament. Soon they were travelling the world together as Mr. and Mrs. Stewart, my young mother by his side, playing Monte Carlo, Wimbledon, amongst other places. I was their first child, and soon after my sister was born. My father was albeit very successful, a heavy drinker, and often moody. It didn't last. My mother, too young to herself, a lonely child, moved back to her parents, bringing my sister and me with her. It will be 10 years before I saw my father again. In 2016, he was going to see me perform at the LA Orpheum with Steve Hackett. At dinner, he was already drunk, and at the show, he left before I came on stage. We had agreed to have hotel breakfast together the following morning, but he had already checked out and gone home, and I never saw him again. I think that sets the scene, and I think that the reason why I've read that out is because I feel that not only does that take immense courage and bravery to write that kind of, open up your heart that way to the world, but I also think it will probably help others as well, because you have to try and think how the effect that would have. How I think about my dad and all the rest of it, but to have that where you're playing with Steve Hackett, you're on stage, a success, and your dad's going to see you, but then he leaves before you come on stage, and then you meet him the next morning and he's not there. And how that would affect how you getting on the tour bus after that gig and going to the next concert while everyone else is talking about, how did the gig go? That's like carrying these massive suitcases of stuff, emotional stuff around with you as well, isn't it? And that's why this album, with having that in it, and the songs, as Nad says, are 75% of them are based on that. You really feel it. And I totally love this album. The first track has got a really modern, quite hard rock riff, great stuff. But there's so much light and shade on here. There's so many different styles of music. It all blends in beautifully. There's so much emotion on here. The light and shade, as I've said, the musicality of it, the musicianship, the honesty of the words. It's just absolutely meticulous. I mean, obviously the cover with the tennis racket is all based on, obviously, Nad's father, really. Secret Lover, That's Not Me, Monte Carlo, Priceless, Wildfire was one of my favourite tracks off it. Did I make a few notes on some songs? I might have done. There is Wildfire is one of my favourites. It's got a wonderful groove to it. There is some Genesis aspects to it, and Nad Sylvan's voice just lends itself in that direction. If you're into, it's kind of pastoral prog that covers so many different bases, give this a listen. It's a wonderful album, and I think you'll really enjoy it. So that's Nad Sylvan, wonderful album. What else shall we have? Have we got any more? Yes, let's go in the complete opposite direction now. Down by the Jetty, recorded in mono. It says remastered mono version, as if you're thinking, oh, where's the stereo one? It was recorded in mono. I have this on CD and vinyl record. They're all coming out, by the way. This possibly might be the only one I get unless I get Stupidity. But this is, I think this is what, when was it? This was recorded in 1974, wasn't it? When you think about what's going on in 1974, and this band literally sounding like they've just recorded themselves in the local pub, playing this, really raw R&B, with Wilco Johnson, anyone who saw them at that time, one of Canby Island's finest bands, the way that they were completely unique, a real kind of, felt like a bunch of, you wouldn't want to meet them on a dark night, but probably they're very, very nice guys. But She Does It Right, great track. The More I Give, Roxette. I bought the single Roxette on United Artists Records, 1975, although the album was recorded in 1974. One Weekend, That Ain't the Way to Behave, I Don't Mind, 10, 20 Years Behind, Keep It Out of Sight, another great track. All Through the City, great track. And of course, Boney Maroney and Tequila, which is the live track. Where was that recorded, by the way? Recorded live at Dingwall's Dance Hall, Camden Lock, on the Pye Mobile on July the 8th, 1974. Absolutely fantastic. And it comes in a polyline sleeve. So well done to, is this Universal, is it? Parlophone Records. Nice polyline in a sleeve, but great R&B. If you've never heard any Dr. Feelgood, you could start here. Stupidity, the live album that made #1, could be another place to go, but this is a wonderful album to have. Wonderful stuff. Right, what else have we got? We got another vinyl album. Oh, this is interesting, because I knew nothing about this band. The picture of them, I presume that isn't them. And it's not them on the back either. It's Sons of Mew, this is, and the album is called Are You Tired of Being Human? I imagine if any of us put on the news at the moment, we might actually put our hands up to that. This is on luxurious white vinyl. This is from a label that I've supported a lot on the channel called Skidmark Records. And this is the first of the Sons of Mew albums to appear on vinyl. It's also available on CD. And it says here, musical collaboration that draws their influences from the likes of Killing Joke, Hawkwind, The Fall, Dead Kennedys, etc. And it certainly does. Is there a picture of them? Not really very easy to see. Just about see them there. And the band are Pete Morley, Neil Marsden, Benedict Lappin and Nick Venables. Sons of Mew. I really, really like this. In fact, I've shown you a lot of things already, but this is a brand new band. So this was completely new to me. And this label seemed to find these bands that have this Hawkwind type legacy following them through the grooves, and this is no exception. Although it's kind of more punky Hawklords in places, but I really, really liked it. It is a psych. They call them psych band. I don't like that phrase always, but they are a kind of psychedelic groove band. It's a kind of band that you might find on Fruits de Mer records. In fact, these two labels are quite similar in that respect. There's lots of driving rhythms. There's lots of changes in the music. You're not quite sure where it's going to go next. The riffs are hypnotic. Sometimes you've got almost like an Americana type guitar sound that kind of hangs in space before it moves into a kind of 60s vibe a little bit. There's a track that sounds like Pink Floyd, the Syd Barrett kind of like Interstellar Overdrive type riff as well. That's one of my favourite tracks, by the way. That's a Locksmith. There's lots of kind of, if I say the word funk, it might give the wrong idea to some of you, but there is a kind of funk feel to some of the guitar riffs and the way that the songs kind of unfold in front of you. Very, very, absolutely loved it. Lots of fuzz bass, lots of kind of half distorted, distant vocals and stuff. And the last track on side 2 has got this almost ambient feel. It's a really long song, and then when it kind of gets a little bit heavier, as more guitars come in, it still keeps this kind of Sendelica groove in places, which is another one of my favourite bands that kind of mine this furrow of Hawkwind, Pink Fairies type feel. If you're into Hawkwind, the Pink Fairies, psychedelic stuff from the 60s, but based in 2025 with that real clear vocals, very easy to follow, interesting music. This is a great album to explore. So you can find them on Bandcamp, but stream this first. It's on CD or vinyl, but I've really enjoyed listening to this. And I listen to all the albums that I review. I listen to obviously several times, but this one has been on probably the most out of everything that I'm showing you. I really, really like that. And that is the Sons of Mew. Jazz is the... 2 to go. Let's just move that one out of the way. And this is Tim Boniface. Now, I really like this. This is very, very different. I do get sent quite a bit of jazz to listen to. And Tim Boniface's alto and tenor saxophones, James Pearson on piano, Malcolm Crease on double bass, and Jan Ormston on drums and percussion. The album is about 45 minutes long. It states that one of the tracks is an extra track, but only takes you to 45. That's fair enough. All of the tracks are based, it's called Themes for Peace, and they're based on Psalms. And you might think that's an interesting place to put together the theme of your album, but not quite when you actually realise who they are and what they do. The theme for Peace, it says here, is a jazz suite based on the text from the biblical Book of Psalms, conceived and composed by Tim Boniface for a special concert at St Albans Cathedral in January 2024. And the music, as of every aspect of jazz, especially if you like your jazz that kind of just gently caresses the room that you're sitting in as you have your morning coffee, those tracks are on here. If you like your jazz to kind of make you feel upbeat, positive, and bounce around the room, those tracks are on here too. But the musicianship is absolutely immaculate, and every musician has a chance for the light to shine upon them. But obviously the production as well is absolutely gorgeous. Now Tim He's a jazz performer and composer, but he was also, and this is where this brings this together, he is a priest in the Church of England and chaplain of the Girton College in Cambridge. So there's very much a spiritual aspect to this. So if you like Coltrane, John Coltrane, and his music and how his spiritual aspect as well of some of his classic albums, then give that a listen. Now, saying John Coltrane might make somebody think, oh, that's a huge leap for classic albums, Love Supreme, etc. But it's in the same, it comes out of the same approach to music, and it's all instrumental. And I think that sometimes music without words really has a very deep connection to the listener. So that is also highly recommended. And I'm going to finish almost, because I've just realised there's one other one. It's Jake Stephenson and Friends. This was the double vinyl album I mentioned last month. And I said it was like really ambient, The Orb, Tangerine Dream. And I expected the 3 CD version to kind of just be what I'd heard with an extra disc. Now, each disc is nearly 75, 80 minutes long, and it's completely sequenced differently. And it's a totally different experience. Support this, because Jake sadly passed away, and he wasn't that old either, and it was from a epilepsy attack, how he lost his life. And so the royalties from this album go towards Epilepsy Research Institute in the UK. This is from Fruits to Me Records, and I love the double vinyl one, and this one I think has the edge. And I know there's quite a few Now Spinning Magazine patrons and members of the Facebook group have gone out and bought this. It's really, really good. And the last CD I want to mention is something which I feel could have been done a lot better. So I like to point these things out because I think it's important, because I want the record labels to realise, as some of the labels have seen here, the way they put these together with the wonderful booklets, the polylined inner sleeves, great presentation. That's what collectors who follow Now Spinning Magazine and other channels and magazines like us really, really want. I recently started to explore the back catalogue of the band called War. Eric Burden and War, the complete CD collection, comes with a little booklet, little gatefold sleeves, really, really well done. And also the World is a Ghetto, also little booklet, but really well done. All the outtakes, and they're absolutely fantastic. And then the later albums, and this is from the 5 Awards classic album, 1977 to 1994. Great. It's a fold-out leaflet, but I'm still okay with that. And so this one, which is seen as the 50th anniversary super deluxe edition. All right, then I'm going to say deluxe edition because I know it definitely says that. And it's about £35. So it's not cheap for 2 CDs. Okay, there's one double CD including outtakes and the original album in a gatefold sleeve. So 3 CDs for £35. It comes with no booklet whatsoever. Nothing. Whereas the others, you could see as I went through that series, the booklet gets smaller and smaller and smaller, where they obviously just thought, nah. And I just feel that for celebrating, when you say it's the 50th anniversary collector's edition, 50th anniversary collector's edition, and you don't give any context, historical context of where it was recorded, what people thought of it, even ask the band what they think when they look back through the lens of time. You're missing a trick there, and it's this is Rhino Records. They seem to do this a lot. So that's the disappointment of the month. Is the war reissues. And finally, 2 books. Heartline by Robin George. This is by Martin Tracey, and it's a labour of love, and it's got wonderful photographs in, lots of text, lots of people have been involved. Robin George, fantastic songwriter. Heartline, one of the best rock songs from that period, without doubt. all his projects, all his passions, background from the family. And I say I interviewed Robin, and some of that interview has been used in the text, but it's a small part compared with the other people who've been involved in pulling this together. It's a wonderful story about a wonderful musician. Please support it if you can. It's fantastic. Wonderful book. And finally, and the band plays on, Sing Me Away, the Night Ranger album review. Tim Durling does this so well. Sammy Hagar, Kansas, Y&T, and Night Ranger, and no doubt there'll be others coming along. I was very honoured to be asked to write the foreword for this. This goes through every album. They've made so many records, and it's literally a train spotter's guide to Night Ranger, a buyer's guide, and so many people have been involved as well. Some of the people I actually work with online are on here. I think Brendan Snyder's in here, and all sorts of people. It's absolute great stuff. And of course, I can still remember coming home. Where was I going? Yeah, coming home from Birmingham, and met my mate in the subway. And he said, "Have you heard of this band called Night Ranger?" I was, "No." And he said, "You've got to listen to Dawn Patrol, this band Night Ranger. You've got to listen to the guitarist Brad Gillis." And there were so many guitarists and that everyone was telling me to listen to, and there's so many albums. But I did. I went to the import racks at Virgin, and I took a chance. Wow! And that was the beginning of my love affair with Night Ranger. So there we go. That's this month's review show. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope there's something in there you want to go off and explore. Let me know what you think in the comments. Remember, music is the healer and the doctor. Please subscribe, ring that little bell so you don't miss out on any future videos. Get some Now Spinning merch, become a patron or YouTube member, and you'll get access to the private WhatsApp group, the private Facebook group, and you can come along to our twice a month virtual pub called the Now Spinning Arms. So keep spinning those discs, and I'll talk to you all very, very soon.